Peace, peace. What up, world? Pod in progress. We back at you with another episode. This will be episode number 44. You could be anywhere in the world. You with us tonight. Greatly appreciate your viewership. Please continue to interact, like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. Check us out on YouTube, Fanbase, all the podcast platforms, Spotify, Apple, and so on. And they're on. Very excited about today's episode. We have a guest with us tonight that is aligned with the very essence of our platform. So I'm looking forward to getting into that discussion. But before we do that, we're going to keep it in line with our tradition. We're going to break the ice with these bars. So my brother True, he's got the bars tonight. He's going to try to, stump us tonight with some bars, man. What you got tonight?
It ain't really about trying to stuff y'all, but my man, brother Davis, he's a hip hop head from the 90s, so I know he's gonna get this. All right, so let's see here. I had it. Look at that. All right, here we go. Just bear with me, y'all. All right, I own the deeds to some acres in the West Indies, where my pops is building a residence to house my seed. Now here's the lead. Y'all niggas pray to hot rods and not God, while Versace play you bitches like Yahtzee, cracking jokes like you potsy. When's the last time you had happy days? Blazing up your herb to escape the maze, but the problem stays. Think big, get it big is my motto. You can go and play your lotto. I'll be singing like baby, won't you be mine? You'll be pressing rewind. You can never see mine. Keep your eyes focused. You can't touch this or quote this. Style is crazy bogus, so you can't try to approach this. Stomp you out like roaches. Pulling on my coattail like some horses, pulling coaches. Roll your roller coasters. It's hotter than the temperature that's cooking in your toasters, while the heat will push you deep into hypnosis.
Mm.
Man, if I had to take a guess, that sounds like Nas If I Ruled the World, but I could be wrong.
Right.
No?
They came on the scene before Nas, though. And here's the hint. It's a group. It's a group. Yeah. I know you know what it is. It's a group. One of the members recently passed away. Classic hip hop group.
The West Indies. I don't know why I'm not thinking about it. I'm thinking of the lyrics right in there from West Indies.
When's the last time you had happy days?
I'm drawing a blank on that one, man.
Man, me too.
Colin, what you think? Oh, word?
I'm drawing a blank. Is it Wu affiliated?
Nah.
It's not.
Nah.
You said a member recently passed away.
Yeah, I want to say last year.
Man, we lost a lot of people last year, man. Oof.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
It's not Tribe Called Quest, is it?
Very close. Fife was
middle. Is it De La?
Yeah.
De La Soul.
All right.
It's so easy. Our stakes
De
is
La.
high.
Okay, that's a good one.
Yeah.
I like that. I appreciate that. Shout out to De La Soul.
Indeed.
Classic hip hop right there. All right. So let's get into our discussion. I would like brother Philip Davis, man. Greatly appreciate your presence again. We have an author with us. This is his book right here, Getting Dollars from Dirt.
Yep.
So just based off of that title, I'm sure everyone listening is intrigued to learn more about yourself. I want to allow you the liberty to, properly introduce yourself, let people know who you are, what your expertise is, and the services that you offer, if you would, please, sir.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you again for having me. Just to be able to meet you guys and people on the other side of the world or the country, just doing the same thing, like-minded individuals. It's great to see that's out in the, you find people who are running in the same lane as you are. So I've been a nurse for about 20 years, registered nurse, worked at all sorts of hospitals, Phoenix Children's Hospital, adult med surge. That's been my trade. And somewhere along the line in my travels, as a nurse who travels, not a traveling nurse, I got this idea after the fires in Northern California that, land is always going to be in need as the population is increasing. My grandfather actually, I was born in Virginia. My grandfather didn't have a high school education, like to maybe 8 years old, but he had tons of property. I'm actually third generation landowner, but I didn't know it at the time because there's a little bit of lost history. So I'm driving through the country with my children and an RV, just seeing the upper part of the United States, and I'm seeing signs for land, 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 land. And I said, man, people buying houses, man, but whoever owns the land, that's the person that really has control. So it got me thinking. I took a course just like anybody else, and it started off as just a way to make some side money to support my family. Now with three children, it was a way to just make a little extra money because I didn't see the 9 to 5 paying me, over time. I always had to trade my time for money, and that took me away. So I started looking at land as a way to own and be able to make money off land, owning land and selling land, and a way to supplement my income. Well, that turned into something bigger than what I thought. And that turned into me owning a real estate company, to create an LLC, YouTube channel, being successfully able to sell properties, into now being an author, then to being a life insurance agent. So it just kept on evolving, and land took me on this journey to where I'm right in front of you now.
Indeed. Greatly appreciate that. Make sure y'all go check out Getting Dollars from Dirt. It's certainly available on Amazon. That's where I got it from. But I'm sure there's other, if there's any other sources where they can find your book, please let people know. And then we also we got to get this in Grassroots Bookstore here in Phoenix, Arizona. Grassroots Bookstore is the only Black-owned bookstore here in our metropolis. So it's a significant hub for a lot of activity in alignment with this very thing that we're doing here today. And we all hold that space, or at least I do. I'm gonna speak for myself. I hold that space very close to my heart, man. When I walk in there, I feel like I'm in my living room or something. You know what I mean? It just has that vibe to it. It's always got great individuals in the space. So it's the perfect place to build on aspects such as this. So considering your introduction, who you are, why buy land? This is something that when we started this particular podcast platform, that was like the first discussion that we sort of dived into, and it really we kind of chronicled our process as far as our collective. 7 brothers here in the Phoenix, Arizona area. We banded together, aggregated our resources, and we identified an opportunity in land, and we mobilized on that.
Right.
So we've kind of spoken to it. Considering your background and your experience, when
Yeah.
someone asks that question, how do you respond? What is your narrative as far as why should we buy land?
Well, if I'm current state, I don't know how people are going to look back on this video, but how much are eggs costing you right now? So land, what are you driving on? What are you living on right now? What you need. Land is, in time memoriam, always been a value. Land was something that was stolen, taken, something that was passed down through generations. Throughout history, people have always valued land. This land was land that was taken, from in history, and now where people of, even in our ethnicity and culture, we were once big farmers and landowners. Well, they moved us into the major cities, offering corporate jobs and high incomes and a different lifestyle, fast and loose. And that also led us to where now you're put on, having a 30, 40-year mortgage and houses you can't afford, in debt that you're going to be drowned in, that you're going to be passed on generationally to, and you don't have a way of self-sustaining yourself. Right now, you're paying market rates for food, groceries, and inflationary costs because corporations have taken away your ability to become self-sufficient. So land, even if you have a home with a little bit of yard, on my YouTube channel, Ancestry Lands, we talk about how to, have chickens, how to grow your own vegetables. And it's a way to self-sustain yourself because, what are we going to wait for the next salmonella, outbreak when you have lettuce trying to eat healthy? Well, you got to pay for organic food, but now those prices for organic to eat healthy cost you more than to eat, with foods that are poisonous to you. So it's a way to become self-sufficient. It is also a way to provide housing for other people. When we talk about the affordable housing crisis, what are they doing? They're buying up farmland. Even in economic downturns, you see rich and wealthy people, what do they move? They move into farmland. They want to own agriculture. Bill Gates is another one. What is it? Jeff Bezos with his, market share. The way he's doing his shares of real estate ownership. You have corporations such as BlackRock buying up the residential housing. And realistically, the house is not that important. It's the land that is the most valuable because houses can be torn down and rebuilt for, higher profits. So neighborhoods change, but the land stays the same. Even shopping malls, you've seen that in our generation where shopping malls were, the big thing. And now you can turn those into, commercial housing. So throughout the history and generations, land will always hold a value. The whole point is who owns the land, because the land can be leased. And I'm sure you guys are going to get into that, so I won't get too ahead of myself. But you have people who have 100-year leases on land where they can be used for a myriad of reasons. And you have some families, like I believe there was a family who won in California. It was an African-American family. The state had taken their beachfront property and they had won like $25 million, and some restitution for that property where they were given back that land because it was taken from them. So land is something that is generational. Land is something that we've been told is not a value. The home is the value, and really it's the mortgage is the value. And the Latin term for mortgage, mort, is a death, and gage is a grip, death grip. And that's designed to keep you enslaved in a way of meaning debt slavery. So that way you are going to always owe the bank and you don't own your actual home. So we've been taught to chase equity and we've not been taught to chase self-sufficiency. We don't teach our children anything but outside the educational system. They don't even know how to raise an animal, become self-sufficient, because the institution wants you to be sufficient on them, not on yourself. And that's what you do. You take the ownership away from the person and they don't even own themselves. So, that, without getting too deep, I don't want to lose everybody on that one.
No, we like deep.
Wait a minute. That's he preaching now. That's Philip 4:12 or something. That's good stuff, brother. Good stuff.
No problem.
Indeed.
So
go ahead.
I know that you've made a few investments regarding just talking about the land itself, but there are certain vehicles that we are not taught or given access to, such as land patents, land trusts. How important are those to preservation of the assets?
I don't want to ever speak above my knowledge base and knowledge gap. My model has always been, I'm not a realtor, I'm an owner. So every property that I bought on Ancestry Lands is something that I own and title myself. It's not only sweat equity, but no one else is going to dictate a price when I sell a property. So a land trust, when you get into those certain complexities of land trust, like revocable trust or irrevocable trust, a lot of that is the legalese and how things get passed down, whether you're in a marriage, the line of succession. So those are things where you need to really sit down with the estate planners and things like that. But a lot of times people jump to that when they don't have enough properties. And I don't want to sound like diminishing, but a lot of times what people need is you need to have large amounts of property, large amounts of wealth, so you can put those things into. It's not a checking account where you can take, your 1-2 property. Even if you have, I have 40 acres and people have 40 acres, you need a lot more than that. You need to be dealing with large amounts of holdings where you can put those into a trust, and then you can have those, built into those vehicles. But I think a lot of people, they like the idea, the social media, the sound, it sounds good. You can lock things up, but you're talking at a big level. You need to become like a land baron at that point. And that, it's a goal to get to. It can be done, but it's a very complex thing, like knowing the difference between an irrevocable and revocable trust. You make the wrong step, you can't change it. So, there's things that can tie up your whole estate and you can actually do more harm than good. So that's something I think people need to educate, and they need to really drill down in their own strategy on how they're going to build that up and what the ultimate purpose would be. I would actually say you probably want to develop a family office before you do a land trust, but that's just me.
Got it. No, that was well stated, and I do want to slow the conversation down a little bit because you referenced yourself as an owner versus a realtor.
Yeah.
So what I do want to get into for the listeners, especially, if you can shine a light on owner financing, because essentially that is your business model, if I'm not mistaken. I've even heard it referred to as like creative financing. But essentially, owner financing is the mechanism that we used to take advantage of the opportunity that was upon us. Can you briefly describe what owner financing is and how your particular business model works and how you serve your clientele?
Sure. Well, the shortest way of putting it is that instead of you traditionally going to go get a loan to buy a home and then you're going to make payments on that loan back to the bank, I, as the owner, am giving you the financing structure of saying you all are buying a 40-acre property, just for sakes of numbers, at 100,000. What I'm saying is that I'm going to hold the property in title, and you all are going to be making payments. You have a down payment that you make initially, just like you would if you were doing a down payment on a traditional mortgage. And then you're going to make a series of payments directly to me as the owner, where I will then, give you your balances and things like that until you reach the agreed upon amount. We're using 100,000 for 40 acres in this aspect, or this example. And then at the end of that, I deed you over the property, whether that's done in an escrow or a title company, or just, from direct owner to buyer. And you're making payments directly to me. I am the bank. And, that allows us to have a owner to client direct contract. And, that's done. There's a lot of different contracts that you can put up to do that. But that allows you to buy directly from me, and you don't have any middleman, no realtors, no extra fees. It's straight from me to you. It's the old way of doing things, where it was just a contract between two people, an agreement. You make payments and I deed you over there in good faith.
Indeed, and I suppose the biggest benefit to that structure for the common man and woman is the fact that there's no banks, no traditional credit processes involved. Where I feel like those aspects of real estate intimidate a lot of people, or they discourage because people have the perception that they've got to jump through hoops and there's some red tape involved, and I have to have these entities in my business per se. Whereas with this owner financing model, it's more personable, right? Yep. And the terms are determined by the direct owner, which makes it more attractive for the common man and woman. That's good to know that there's someone like you involved in this type of transaction, because honestly, before we mobilized on our property, I wasn't too familiar with that structure, and I would assume that there are others that don't have that knowledge, right? And it's something that is feasible for most people, especially if you're able to get a few other individuals within your family or your associate circle to band together and take advantage. Before I get into my next question, True, you got anything, bro?
Yes, indeed. Peace. Brother Davis, when I first was looking into land ownership, a brother put me on to a website called LoopNet that has listings of vacant lots. Would you suggest, is that a good source to go to, like these websites that have vacant lots listed? And so do you have any particular sites that you recommend?
Well, yeah, ancestrylands.com always. That's where you can always go. But no, we're not the only shop in house. There are many different ones. There's like Lands of America. You have land listings on Zillow. We don't. I don't just post my listings on my website. They're on YouTube. They're on Facebook. They're on Instagram. They're on X. Realistically, you can find any property anywhere. It's really who you're buying from that matters. And there are tons of websites where they're listed by realtors because a lot of owners don't want to do the legwork of marketing and dealing with clients, people not showing up, people, flaking on you, ghosting on you, things like that. So there are a lot of reputable websites out there that you can find land all across America, including in your own county. I talk about that in my book, Getting Dollars from Dirt: A Beginner's Guide to Vacant Land Investing. Some of the places you can go right is to your county tax sales. There are little intricacies that you can, but realistically, you want to just do a good Google search and find out, the website. They're going to rank high. The trusted websites are going to be ranking high on a Google search. And then you want to really make sure wherever you're looking for in land, are you buying from an owner? Are you buying from a company, a realtor? Because then you're looking at fees. It could be good either way. I mean, I bought land from, with a realtor, without a realtor, that I wouldn't put in ownership. So it really is about making connection with the people you're buying from and trusting them. It can be a double-edged sword where you're buying from a realtor and it's not a great experience, and you're buying from an owner. It could also not be a great experience. So really the devil's in the details. But there are a lot of great sites where people are selling land. It's just it's not in your ether. It's not in your universe of just knowing until you're really looking from it, or someone tells you, hey, go look in this. One of the things about my book is it gives you a basic understanding before you go to these websites to say, hey, this is what I'm looking for. This is what I want to use it for. So now I go in there with knowledge, forward knowledge, to really pinpoint what I'm looking at. So that's one of the things I would say. Not trying to promote my book, shameless plug, but it does give you a skeleton understanding of when you're looking at properties. You're not looking at just land size. You're really looking a little bit more in depth to make sure what you're buying is really what you want.
Yeah, thank you. And being on the show, you definitely want to promote your book, because that's why we have you, because want to provide resources that people can get from, and so I appreciate that.
Yeah,
indeed. Speaking of the book, I believe it's in chapter 2. You speak about the holy trinity of land.
Yeah.
Can you disclose what you mean by that? What are those 3 things that kind of make up the holy trinity, and why is that so significant to someone that is looking to make that step as far as making that first purchase, for instance?
Yeah. And thanks for that question. I one of the things, I lived in Phoenix for about 5 years, worked at Phoenix Children's Hospital. So depending on where you are in the United States, in the Midwest, you're going to have a lot more flat land. I've driven through the Midwest. In the South, you're going to deal with a little bit more of, I want to say, swampy area, but you're going to have a lot of wetlands, things like that, where the terrain is different all across the United States. In Arizona, it's desert, much like Vegas in Southern California. So water is going to be a big issue. So you also have large areas where they're uninhabited or they're not populated. You just got large, desert areas. So you really need to, one, have access to the property. You need to be able to get to it without driving over some cactuses or something that's going to tear up your car to get to the property. So roads are kind of the main vein of how you want to look for a property. Is it road accessible? Because some properties can be landlocked, meaning that you have multiple properties surrounding them and you're not able to get to the property, where you need something called an easement. That's a little bit more complex, but you need access to the property. The other thing is the location. How far are you away from human population means that you will incur some building issues when it comes to things like power, water, unless you have rain catch systems. But in a lot of states, they do not. Like California, they don't allow you to catch rainwater. So some states make it a little bit harder for you to become independent. There's a large population that does off-grid, where it's everything is you basically using your own electricity, everything's DIY, which I do a lot of videos on that on my channel. but you really need to make sure that you have access to the property and it's a location where you're at least close enough to civilization. And the big reason why I say that is, speaking of my nursing background, you break your leg or roll your ankle, that hour and a half, drive of being free and being able to do whatever you want to do in your property and live free, well, that's going to now be an issue. And if you're alone, it's going to be even a more issue if your driving leg is leg that's injured. So getting groceries, just basic things that you do need society to rely on, you have to take those things into account when you are looking at a lot, because your car breaks down and I've driven from Phoenix to San Bernardino. There's a lot of desert stretch to get to San Bernardino, and that car breaks down and you see the 60 miles to the next gas station. Well, it's hoof it a hoof it or sit. So that's going to be a big issue with that, with the access. And the other thing is too, is that I have a little sweet spot. This is kind of maybe evolved form of it, is that you really want to be about an hour to an hour and a half away from a major metropolitan city. I think anything further than that, you're kind of looking at, it's going to be a little difficult as far as property values are concerned for land growing up or even having growth. In California City, where I have the properties at mainly, it is about just an hour and a half away from California. And then we saw with the wildfires, people are moving out, people are evacuating. The city's not going to be rebuildable where it's habitable for most of the residents because of the winds and the fires, and people are going to start moving out. Well, they move out to the outskirts and those areas become more expensive. And then the people who can't afford it, they get pushed out a little bit further. So at an hour and a half, you're still in that affordable land where you still have smaller towns, smaller cities, and that allows you to be able to pick up that eventual population growth that most cities will have eventually as cities continue to grow and expand. And that puts you in the path of growth if you want to think long term. I mean, if you look at Disney, Disney was on a swamp, and look at it now, that area. So if you had property and land back then before Disney, when if you had some wetlands, that would be an issue, a great benefit for you if you had bought property at that time. So and again, the cities weren't as developed as they are now. So with that comes development, but you need to be in those sweet spots where you're in that radius. So the size of the property also matters as well. Many times I think there's a knowledge gap where people like, I want 2, 3, 5, 10 acres. Well, you can have 10 acres, but you want to put a 2,000 square foot home on 10 acres. Where's your water coming from? Where's your power line coming to? When you're building a home, you have a septic system, as they do in Arizona, many places, and certain cities. I think like Tucson, things like that. You're going to have septic systems. Well, when you have a septic system, you have to perk, so the ground may be better on one spot, and that's where you can build. They may put your water line 20, 30 more feet out where you have to pay by the foot. Same thing with your electricity. So those things are going to come in where you look at size. People think bigger is better. That's not always the case, depending on what you're going to use for it. Now, if you're doing like Jay Prince is doing, and you're doing raising cattle, then you want a bigger property because you need that for the cattle, because you have beef and it's an industry. But a lot of people are looking at residential living. They think that they need 5, 10 acres when actually half an acre, even a quarter acre, is way more than enough property to manage it, because you want to be able to manage your property. And even in Arizona, outside monsoon season, water is going to be an issue for you all the time. So you have to find a way to manage the resources, because now you have those water restrictions that they have in Southern California and Arizona too as well. You're going to have issues with getting water out to your property to feed your animals and basically feed yourself, that you have to think of and account. So size, location, and access are really going to be some things. And that's why I say that hour and a half towards city, where you can always go and get resources, is going to be a great benefit to you.
Indeed. That's the holy trinity. You said size, location, and what was the third?
Access. You got to be able to get to it. Yeah.
Access. Very important.
And one of the key things about access is that if you look on Zillow and you see the name of a road on a satellite, it typically means it's county maintained road, even if it's a dirt road. But it's something you want to make sure you check. That's something I learned along the way. It's a little dirty little secret nobody tells you about real estate. If the road has a name, more than likely the county maintains it. But the further out you get, the further those roads are not going to be as well maintained. So keep that in mind.
Okay. So
Mhm.
like considering those three things, that requires a little bit of research, right? Or at least some guidance from a proper professional such as yourself that can guide someone. So it requires a level of research, right? And I think people hear that word research and it sounds like this robust process. And it's another element that may intimidate or discourage people. But in your book, you articulate the fact that you shouldn't be discouraged and you should actually be enthusiastic about that process because it's going to enlighten you on those aspects of this process that you need to know. Um, can you speak to um, briefly, like your
Sure.
initial experience with that particular aspect of the effort of purchasing land? How do you kind of navigate that piece to determine what is appropriate and what maybe isn't feasible or appropriate?
Yeah. Great question. The main thing you have to ask yourself is, what do you want the land for? Most people, they don't sit down and really line out what their needs are with land. Do you need the land for recreational? Are you looking to do commercial? Do you want to have a business on it? Do you want residential? And you got to think about really, what are the average size homes that you see in the area you live at. Like Los Angeles, the average size home is a .10, which is like 5,000 square feet. That's the whole lot. That's the edges of your front yard, your backyard, the four corners of the gate. And people will still think they need an acre. And I'm like, the place you live at now, you got a 1,700 square foot on a 5,000 lot. The size matters mainly. As far as in the research is concerned, I mean, there are tons of, my book is one thing. It gives you the understanding of, do I have a residential lot? Can I do commercial on it? Because some people do want to do, have a business or a side hustle that they want to do on their properties. And some properties do allow you, like the properties we sell in California City, they do allow you those mixed use. Well, you may not want to use them, but the resale value of them is very alluring if you have a property that people can not only have a residence, but a business on. So a lot of times in my book, it gives you that basic understanding. And then you got to go into the area. And what I always start with is looking at, what are the houses sell for? What are the houses? Are they zoning? What are the zones of the houses? What are the houses typical size look like? You want to start at what's developed and see, kind of, get an idea of what's going on out there. In some areas like, Yavapai County in Arizona, I mean, I know that area very well. You do have unrestricted lots where you could kind of build whatever. Well, people like that until the person next door to you looks like the hills have eyes, and then the next thing you know, you're trying to get up out of there, and then you want to do stuff, but every time they're over there looking worse than so you have to think about that, especially if you're going to resell a lot. We're not going to live forever, and you want to be able to have real estate that you can either leave behind. You don't want to leave a problem, and you want to leave something that's profitable. So I always say, don't leave a problem, leave a profit for the next generation, or even for yourself in the future. So you buy with the intention of, would you buy it if you were selling it to yourself? And that's where you got to think, don't leave a problem, leave a profit. But the research can be daunting. But like I said, I am starting to look at creating a course on understanding real estate a little bit more. So I think that'll be something in the future. If I'm back on the show, we can talk about and what that offers. My father's a retired teacher. My brother's a teacher in New York City. So I do have an education background, much like my book, to explain it in layman terms so people have a basic understanding. As a nurse, I try to use, layman's jargon. So I want to make sure people have the concept to understand in a way that they get it, not I get it. So I think that's something there. And people can always email me, reach out to me, phdavis at ancestrylands.com. You can watch my channel. I've hit over 100,000 subscribers. And I don't just talk about land. I explain things about land, what you can do on land, give you ideas. It's a really a self-sufficiency channel / wealth mindset channel that's built at really teaching you all aspects with understanding land, and and just wealth, because when you own land, you got to do something with it. I have over 100 properties, and it's not about dirt anymore. It's about management at that point. So you do get to learn a lot. And sometimes you got to step out there like you all have done, and you got to start asking questions. You got to start taking some interest, and you're going to have to you're going to fail a little bit to get some knowledge. And I think that's where people get paralyzed at. They don't research, they get stuck in analysis paralysis. And that can be very limiting, but sometimes you need to get somebody who has a little bit more knowledge and say, hey, let me ask you some questions, and or watch some, get yourself educated. You Google and YouTube is your friend, you know, to sum it up.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's
And
cool.
and that's really good research that people need to understand the importance of diving into. And there's one I wanted to go back to one thing you said earlier too. You mentioned about not knowing that you were a landowner. What did you mean when you said that? And
Yeah.
how did that change the trajectory of what got you into land?
Yeah. Okay. So my grandfather, Samuel Blow, he was I guess, and he was a World War II vet, and he passed when I was like 13. So, you hear stories, legend of the people in your past and your family, but I got to talking to one of my uncles who was like 70 something years old, and now who also is buying a property from me. And he said, man, your grandfather was a landowner. He'd be so proud of you. He knew my grandfather, not how I knew him. That was just granddad. The suits with the white wall tires on the Lincoln, and the fedora hat, and I never seen him anything, and then the Uzis on the side and all of that stuff with the old Danny Glover look, that. But I didn't see him and get to talk with him about what he understood and knew in life, the things he had learned and knowledge. So I got that knowledge from an uncle who was unfortunately locked up, and he was out, and we built that relationship much years later. But I sat in a room and told him about what I was doing. He said, man, this is you like your grandfather all over again. So there was a legacy connection that had been lost through family destruction, the same things that we've seen plague. I think it's not only the black families, African American families now is starting to plague most families in America, as the marriage rates were once higher, now they're not, and it's starting to affect all of American society, not just African American communities. It's starting to seep its way into. I mean, heck, one of my nursing supervisors, he's Asian, and he's a single father of 4 Asian girls. I said I've never met an Asian man that was a single
Hey,
father at all. He's walking around looking like Shang Tsung from Mortal Kombat 1, through the floor. I've just never seen it. But I think that, and something's been lost from that generation that were sharecroppers like my grandmother,
yeah,
and we didn't get to talk with them about these stories. I'm lucky enough to still have a grandmother that's going to be 91 this year, and I've gotten that story from her, how they were sharecroppers and things that are lost on art, excuse me. And I think that's something that people are missing. That's what I said, that corporate move to the city, get away from that life, and they pushed us into the cities, and then they took the farmland and then they started doing things, and now you have all these different cities that came up, these different attractions. And I think even 50 Cent's talking about doing the same thing. They're going back and buying up land to hold concerts now. That was where they moved everyone away from, to build the towns or the places that they want. Now you have those Louisiana communities, those shoreside communities, because they took those properties away from the people that owned them and told them cities was yeah, I know. They put those people in cities, offered them a salary, a pension, and big promises of corporate big offices, but they took away that self-sufficiency, that identity of who they were, that independence of who they were. So that was something that I reconnected back. I took a lot more pride. I did a video honoring my grandfather for that, and I really stuck into that. And I'm teaching my kids about land, and my kids work for me. They're 10 and 8. They're 10 and 8, about to be 11 and 9, and they are within my business doing, making money as employees of my business. So it's something that I involve them in, my YouTube channel, things like that, things EYL talks about, I do. I don't just, it's not conceptual with me. I'm walking, talking, living it. I'm a guy who got lucky. I'm not a guy with a real estate background. I just sat down and learned, figured out a few things, and it worked, and I went forward with it. So I'm a self-made guy. That's what I am. See it how you get it, and I'm living proof that it can be done. My kids are smarter than me in a lot of ways. So,
that's
but I
good.
can tell you how I did it. I can show you the recipe, but I can't promise it's gonna taste. My grits ain't gonna taste like yours, but I can tell you how to make them.
That's good, man. That's dope, man. Thank you for
Yeah.
sharing that. I just wanted to get that backstory because I think that's important. Oftentimes when we come across that journey in life and the ancestors come back up and they teach us a thing or two, man, and we learn really who we are. It allows us to tap back in, like you said, tap back
Yep.
into the real true nature of who we really are, man. And that's an important vital aspect. And then to bring your family along with you, man, shout out to you, brother. That's dope.
Yeah, I got pictures of like a lot of people in my family from Virginia. They bought the book. I got a picture of my grandma holding my book, and you talk about something that's like, man, you look at it and say, wow. One of the things I'll tell you guys too, eh, go to a bank and tell them you own land. See if you don't get approved for a mortgage. See if you don't have more than enough
Mm,
collateral. When you talk land with people in different cultures, the conversation is so much different. You don't have to have land that is like, a big plush 40 acres something somewhere else. Just owning land gives you leverage. And that's what something people are greatly missing. They want you being a consumer, they don't want you being an owner.
oh,
And when you say you own something that's real estate and it's land, they think, can I develop it? Is it going to hold long term? And the conversation changes. It becomes Mr. Brother True, Mr. Brother, Mr. Kylan. It changes already to, talking to you by your first name is addressing you as sir, when you walk into the bank. And I walked in there with with a sweater and some sweatpants, and it's been Mr. Davis once they knew that the properties were listed. It's too innumerable to list. And it does change when you are applying for a mortgage because now you've got leverage and collateral that they say, man, we can give him more because he has something that we find of value.
yeah.
So I don't want to get ahead still, but I'll let you guys go ahead and lead.
Go ahead, True. I think you got a question.
Yeah, man. Just to reiterate what Nikia was saying about how you're carrying on a legacy with the family and everything. That's a beautiful thing, man. And that's what it's all about. Um, what I was gonna say, man, what's the copyright on the book?
My copyright?
Yeah, when was it published?
Oh, what did I make? I wrote this. What we're going on 20. I believe I wrote it in 23, May of 23.
Okay.
Yeah, well, it actually was published on June 2nd of 23. So it's not even 2 years old.
What has the response to the book been like? How did it resonate with people?
Well, immediately with all my clients, I think we created about maybe almost 70 new landowners. And
Wow.
the
That's
tragedy is that I'm on the East Coast in the Philly area trying to teach people about the value of land ownership. And you always
Yeah.
get that one person saying, "But I don't live in Cali," and I'm like, "Well, do you think Warren Buffett owns? He lives on every property he owns." The clients that I have, they bought the book, and the book gave them an understanding why they were buying from me and why it was a good idea to buy from me. What I was giving them was future legacy, future profit, something that they can develop, but not only develop, they can actually see they're in the path of growth. My family has been more of, I guess you would say it's that legacy factor where you become an author and your family is proud that you've created something. When my father, who's a retired teacher, he said, Philip, this should be in every school system. This should be like elementary school required reading because it needed to be that simple because our people have never been taught this. It's always been in certain circles. Then you had the advent of the internet. Knowledge now has been able to be, you can grab the knowledge, but people just don't know where to find it. And it needed to be somewhere very simple where people can read it. Now, what's happened is a lot of people coming up from the South and California through immigration have settled in on the book, have bought the land, and they're out competing us. Where I've told people is that, well, you got all these people coming up through LA And much like now crocodiles in Africa, they go where the migration comes through. That's where they
Yeah.
sit themselves at. We as people need to be in front of and own the land that we're going to sell to the brown people, Mexicans, Hispanics, people who value land and understand what land truly value is. They want land. They want to pay cash for land. Well, that puts us in the forefront of being able to create wealth for ourselves because we have land that we can flip. Even if you had a community of landowners, if you grow chicken and I grow vegetables, well, we
You're
now
doing
have a
great.
community where we can share our resources. And now you're designated to grow crops on yours where you don't need to pay for these things. Now you have your own internal community. I was seeing Hispanics sell strawberries on a corner when I was in Arizona. I'm like, man, they got a lot of strawberries and they're selling them for very cheap. They're doing something, their communities are doing things that we used to do. And the issue is we don't own the land anymore. We're pushed into areas where we're taught to be violent against each other. We're not in longer in communities. There's this, I think there's this unatold spirit that wants to be more organized, but what we have is a distraction of glamour, glitz, women shaking their bottom and things like that, and they push the conversation from the De La Souls, that rhythmic conversation talking about things that matter, to talking about everything that doesn't matter, while they took the things that matter away from us. But we've allowed that to happen. And I said, man, someone's got to be the middle guy to say, I need to help out the people. Now I could charge 100 grand, but it didn't make sense of having, what's the point of me being rich and everyone else is sitting down at the bottom? When I bring you up, then we go up. But I wanted to have a legacy of leaving property and ownership behind. I didn't want to be, the wealthy guy that gets forgotten through history because, look at me, I'm good. It felt better to be able to know that I've helped people. I've had my 40 acres. I didn't need the Emancipation Proclamation to get it. And it's an inspiration to other people that, yeah, you can get your 40 acres, man. It's out there. You can get it. And you don't need to pay $1 million to get it either. That's what I'm offering. But I want people to buy land. What is $1,000, $250 a month? I said it needs to be affordable for people to be able to buy it like they would a car. Well, now it's cheaper than a car. So again, that's for something that loses value, depreciates right when you get off the lot, and you got something that's going to appreciate over time. And the use is invaluable. It will pay for itself depending on how you set it up. And you don't need a lot of knowledge. Seeds don't need you to do a lot to let them grow. They'll grow on their own. They've been doing it for a long time. So the thing about it is that when people start doing and they start failing, but they're trying and failing, they're never failing to try. They will eventually succeed.
Mhm.
You practice swinging a baseball bat at a 90-mile-an-hour pitch, you're going to eventually start hitting it and you're going to learn how to hit it better. And that's what people need. But you need an opportunity first to be able to buy land. You need someone to actually say, hey, I'm not a gatekeeper. What I did was I just took that little nail off. So when you go push, pop that lock and push it through. And now everybody knows how to get through that gate. And that's what I want it to be.
Bro, man, you nailed it, brother. Because when you said that book needs
Yep.
to be made in simple terms where a baby could digest it,
Mhm.
that's the reason why we have this show. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
The show.
I mean, I'm trying to get paid too. Don't that make some money too at the same time.
You answered another question though, because when you were talking about
Yeah.
just yourself not
Yeah.
being, I was gonna ask
Yeah.
what was the motivation to go beyond? Oh, I'm good, so I ain't got nothing to worry about. You already answered it. You know what I'm saying? I was gonna let you know. Google, YouTube, and all that. That's cool, but I'm gonna be blowing up your email.
Yeah. Well, I do consultations too as well. I have trained someone how to buy a property like on their own, did one-on-one training, for a fee, but it was reasonable. And the thing was, is I always said that let's just say you gentlemen for us, a sense, if we have an alliance of people who own land, there's a lot that you can set up and trade. There are people who are looking to get access into this country that I think the administration is trying to do, but there are people who want land to utilize it for more complex reasons. And what they're doing is trying to get in ahead of it. And when you have groups that form, it takes back the power that we're losing. They said I think it's the economic. I have done a video on this. Don't quote me because I've done it so many times and I put it out. The Economic Institute for like Wealth and Poverty said by 2053, African American wealth will be at zero. And what I said was that I had the means through the income, through my salary working as a nurse, to buy a property, then hold it to get another property, keep accumulating properties, and then turn back to people and say, hey, it's $1,000, 250 a month, or 350 a month, and you can have 2 acres, 3 acres. And then people told me, well, I don't live there. What am I going to do with it? I said, well, why don't you just hold it if the taxes are $100? So you have to break a mindset that has been indoctrinated. And why do I own a land? I'm like, well, Warren Buffett owns, I mean, Kanye West was out in, what was he? He was in like Wyoming, and 40 acres of a lot. He had a house built later, but he owned the land first. You see it happening all the time. They talk about it in videos. I own a block, but you can get your own piece of the pie, and that's your land. It's your place to go to, your place to build the opportunity. But people rather have an iPhone, electric car, something else, and it's like, that's fine. But what do you have that's long lasting? What do you have that's actually going to be valuable the day you close your eyes? What did you leave this planet and say, hey, I did something more than the degree? I mean, remember we grew up, degrees were like all the thing. Now it's like everybody and their mama got a degree. I mean, even the people who have, on the spectrum have a degree. It's like a degree doesn't mean anything. And now they're telling you need 2 degrees. And then they're telling you, well, we're going to outsource it outside the country. And it's like, okay, so what can you offer now when they say your credit isn't good enough? You don't have enough money because the degree you took was not a good degree. Now the student loans are on. Now you're in more debt. Now you got to get a house. It just keeps compiling, and you don't have anything that can get you out of it. Well, if you had a piece of property, maybe you can lease it. Maybe you can make some money on it. Maybe you can grow some crops on it. There's a way out. And what people want is an answer. They don't want to be shown a way. I can only show people the way, and the way is land.
Wow, man, I'm greatly appreciative for all the jewels that you dropping today. And this conversation it can be dense, right? Especially for beginners. But
Yeah.
you spoken to your book, and I can speak to this because I read it over the weekend. It's a very easy read. It's if I was a fifth grader, I would be able to absorb the concepts that are explained. And I feel like you've provided a comprehensive explanation to not only the process of purchasing land, but what to do afterwards, right? And
Yep.
some of the things that you need to consider as far as maintaining the land, satisfying, requirements from the governmental agencies, the authority having jurisdictions and things of that nature. And also, you present some ideas on how people can monetize the space or even use it recreationally for their families. And I think this is the information because I think 2 things in particular serve as like the largest barriers for people of our demographic when it comes to spaces like this. The first one is like terminology. I think,
Yeah.
that serves as a barrier when people don't understand the lingo or the terms within a
Yep.
particular space. It's literally like talking another language, and it's just going over their heads. So
Yeah.
when you're able to explain these concepts in simple terms, it really helps. And then the other thing is just exposure. Giving people that
Mhm.
exposure, it really helps. So you've done a great job with this book.
Thank you. I actually had tore my Achilles about a year ago, and my orthopedic doctor, my orthopedic surgeon, he read it. He's like, "Man, that's a good book." He's like, "Man, I flew right through it." And it's when people meet me, I talk to them about it. When they read it, it's a greater understanding they walk away with, and it's not something that it's educational. I teach you what an acre of land is, what a plot of land, the terminology is in there, and it's meant to educate you so you can walk away and come back to me with the more informed conversation and say, okay, what's the next part? You get on those Lands of Americas, those websites, Brother True, and you're saying, okay, after I read that book, man, now I know I'm looking at residential land. And then you say, hey, man, maybe just some have a mixed use. Okay, what's the zoning? You can call the county and say, hey, I'm looking at this plot of land. What's the uses on that one? You're now having a conversation to get you answers. You're not fishing in the dark. What I'm doing is giving you a lane, a highway to drive on. I'm creating a road for you to be able to travel down. Where you stop at is where you go, but it will make you more informed when you're researching property. You're armed with knowledge, and it makes you wonder what they're teaching us at school, right? I mean, that's It's
Teach them
designed to put you in a cubicle. It is
exactly.
not designed to make you an owner. It is not designed to make you anything, which is why they say most
Slave.
owners, most entrepreneurs do not go to school. But it
Yeah.
makes you wonder what they're teaching us if we do not have terminology. There should be how to grow chicken. There should be animals at schools where people know how to farm and use them. They're not teaching that. They're teaching you to go in there, go to 9 to 5, make someone else rich, and you got eggs in there that you got to pay for that you can't afford. Well, where are all the chickens at? So
Exactly.
I'm right now talking to my way. I'm saying, man, maybe we need to buy some chickens and just start there, and sell them to the community, like for less than, if you sold it for $1 less than what they're charging for a dozen, you would still be doing a good service. Now imagine if you had enough chickens and you had a bigger plot of land, your next door neighbor, three of you all could use each other's yards that way and just rotate them. I mean, you're talking about well, that's, let me not be conspiratorial, but yeah, so that's what it's meant to do. It's meant to put you on the treadmill of servitude, to the higher power, to keep spending, so that way they can keep getting subsidies, they can keep getting things like that, and it doesn't help your family, and it doesn't teach your children anything. So I don't want to get pontificate too much, but that's basically what it is. But to answer your question, brother, true, the book has been, it will continue to be something that is knowledge that will be not hidden, but knowledge that's spoken about, promoted. It has its surges, but the book was a legacy to my children, and know, hey, you can be an author, and I'll be dagged if I didn't write a book. Then I knew my cousin wrote a book. Then another cousin wrote a book. It started something within my family where now people are competing over being a book. And I interviewed my cousin on my channel about her book because she's a realtor and a pastor. So it sparked conversations that I didn't, but my own sense of pride was saying that I wasn't going to leave something on the table for my children to be successful for. I say, hey, look, I've written a book. I started a business. I started a company. I got you guys IULs. I got this. What are you going to do? I put a bar up high to say, hey, here's what I've done for my greatness in my life. I want you to look at it and say, you gotta take it and run further. You know, you what did they say? Muhammad Ali, then his daughter Layla Ali, Tatiana Ali. That legacy, you're the progenitor of greatness, but you gotta set a bar where you say, now go higher than I did. And if they go higher than you did, you're gonna have success and wealth for generations to come. So I got into land, and it's brought me to you all. I didn't think that was going to happen. And that's part of the journey. Land will take you in a myriad of different places. You guys start doing recreational, which we talked about. You guys are doing. You may want to have people host on your thing. Now you're renting out recreational space year round. Well, in the better months without monsoon season. Now you're looking at, you have, you know, um, self-sufficiency, camps and programs. Now you're looking at ways that you all can make money, make knowledge, community programs. Maybe you have some, government grants that come in there. I mean, you're talking about, you don't know where your conversation is going to go when you own land, but when you own land, people will approach you for it in different ways. They will come to you. I've had companies want to lease my land for building like electricity grids, and they say, we got to go out through this, but we'll give you that. So you're talking about, they want to do 100-year lease. I won't be alive when that money still comes in. 100-year land lease to just put electricity up. I don't have to do anything but sign a paper and say I'm going to get 15, 2 grand a month for the next 100 years. I mean, when I'm retired and I'm old, that check will still be coming in. So, I don't know. I get excited about things like that. I'm like, man, I'll be
That's
looking back and be like, man, y'all make sure that check is still coming. Just
that's
that
some stuff,
electricity check.
that's some stuff to get excited about, man.
Yeah, and again, when you're dealing with that, you have a conversation. I think one of the things I've helped with my marriage is it quells that what about meism, because they see you making big moves, things like that. That's beyond them. You're really with a boss kind of person, not a boss that's got a Maybach, but a person who's making moves and thinking way, way long term. Like I tell my wife, who's got your back in the life when you're 70, 80? You're good looking now, but what happens when the wrinkles set in and that walker starts coming? You're going to need some funding. So when we look at my grandmother, we say, hey, she's 91. It's like, well, grandma ain't sitting up there shaking her booty anymore and opening up the legs. She's out here looking for health insurance and oxygen. So right then is when the checks come in, when they tell you can't have too much salt on your food. Then you start looking at, well, what did I do to get myself in place, or am I now going to be looking at, they're cutting social security finally, and now I'm going to be out in the streets because I can't afford medication. That check starts to look really like you did a good thing now. So, it's something to think about when I'm in a marriage. I'm talking to my wife and we're talking about things long term. They're listening to you plan, and that conversation is much different. And they're engaging you in a different way because the responsibility is there. The conversation has to change beyond I want to get my hair and nails done to, hey, what are we going to do about this property here? What are we going to do long term? We're having meetings like this. My wife sees that. She's like, hey, you need anything? Can I get anything ready for the meeting before we get started? That you see that because they see you progressing. You're still competitive. That's just my experience.
It kind of goes back to something we said on my first episode as well. We were talking about how there's this this diplomat on the continent who said a man has two wives. His first wife is the land.
Right.
His second wife is the lady he lays down to every night.
Yeah.
So you got to learn how to cultivate and nurture that land first, and then maybe our women will start respecting us more. You know what I'm saying? So you just pretty much showed and proved that right there.
Yes, sir. Yeah. And you're writing a book, and your kids talk about you differently, right? I mean, it's crazy. They're looking at my dad wrote a book. He did this. My son went to school, elementary school. My dad wrote a book. What's the book? He brought it in, and it's his name too. He's the third. So it's like the sense of the name, and I actually have what I wrote, my inscription to my son. I told him he's 7 years old at the time of this book, a child at its creation, a man, no doubt, when these words have meaning. Son, even at the time when I became an author, life continues to be challenging. Know that I'm dedicated to your success. We will not agree some days, argue on others, even may not speak in the future. Through all of that, know I foresaw these days and still love you no matter what. I'm proud of you even before your story is known. Use the strength I gave you, whether I'm alive or not. Pass down this book, promote it to others, build your legacy, honor your name, for it is mine.
That's a legacy right there. That's powerful. That's dope. Yes, sir.
So when you ask me about the book, well, I may not be alive when the book becomes there, but I got another one of me, another Philip Davis is going to be saying, this is the book my father wrote.
Come on, man. Come on,
man. That's profound, powerful, brother. Man, there's so much more I want to get into. We definitely going to bring you back. And I'm looking forward to consulting with you for our efforts out here in Arizona. And we got some dope events coming up. Brother Nakia, if you could speak to that, because this brother needs to be center of one of those particular events. So I'm going to do everything in our power to get him here. So if you don't mind, if you can kind of run through those announcements, and then before we tap out, Philip, if you could just share with the listeners how people can reach out to you and all the services that you provide, because I know you have a few other ancillary services that you also offer as well. Turn it over to Brother Nakia.
Yes, sir, man. So first off, man, we got a week coming up on the 30th. We've got Get It Out the Mud, Composting 101. It's going to be hosted at Heart and Soil Community Garden, man. Awesome event. We have a few tickets still left. So if you haven't already checked out the website, go to growspot.org. You can find the event there. It takes you to a link directly to register and sign up for that event. Like I said, we've got a few spots that are left. We've got some special things for those that show up as well in person. So I don't want to spill it. Don't want to give it away. But by the time this episode comes out, you guys will be, you'll be a few days away from the actual workshop. But yeah, make sure you go to growspot.org. Check that out. The Legacy Camp, second annual Legacy Camp, which is where, we take young men out onto our land. Allow them to do just a three-day experience, man. Just being able to really tap back into what the land has to offer. That creative canvas. The brother kind of mentioned a little bit of that as well a little bit earlier, right? That ability to be able to just, to unplug and really to recreate, man. But the second annual Legacy Camp, that's coming up May 24th through 26th. You don't want to miss it. We've got a lot of people that are already on that list. So. Again, you can check us out, thegrowspot.org. You can find us there, growspot.org/camp. So you'll find it there as well. And then, man, so the event that Brother Colin was mentioning to you, Brother Davis, is it's called Let's Get Free. And this is all about how to acquire land without a bank, without credit. So this event is coming in October, man. So again, we don't know what your calendar looks like right now, but we would love to have you at that event, because everything that you spoke about today, what your book is about, and And the legacy that you're leaving is to exactly what we're looking to build with that particular event as well.
Awesome. That's great. Let's make it happen, please. I think that's great. Well, like you said, I just want to say thank you, all of you gentlemen. It's been a pleasure to just meet you all, talk with you all, be invited on the show, and just to be able to exchange ideas and learn that there are more people out in the world that are looking for not just what I have to offer, but what I've been seeking as well. You can find my website, ancestrylands.com. Ancestry Lands, everything on Twitter, TikTok, or X, TikTok, Instagram, on Facebook, my business page. We don't just sell property. We talk about what you can do with the properties. My book, Getting Dollars from Dirt, Beginner's Guide to Vacant Land Investing, is on Amazon. It is mostly on Amazon and on Kindle. I can kind of expand out in the future about other ways to buy the book, but it's directly on Amazon. I also do life insurance. I'm licensed in Arizona because I've sold life insurance policies. I have life insurance policies. My kids have life insurance policies, IULs to be exact. So there is kind of a myriad of things that I do. You can email me at phdavis@ancestrylands.com. If you want to do consulting, we can talk about what your needs are, but I kind of want to know what you want first, what you're looking for, before I come up with a plan. Because as an educator, as a family from teachers, it really needs to be curtailed with an outline that's more for what you're looking for, not for what I think you should know. So, that might take a little bit of time, and then I will have some coaching or teaching classes that come in the future. So that'll be to be discussed. I'll give you guys more later on. But again, gentlemen, thank you for having me. And again, man, Lance got me right in front of you all, asking to be invited to a conference. Like, the journey continues. I appreciate it greatly.
Likewise.
Well, you one of the bros now, man. So we're gonna keep you close, pull you into this community that we're working on building. In addition to the network of other individuals that we had on this platform and people that we convene with regularly here in Arizona. But I don't believe in meaningless coincidences. So the fact that we had an interaction on fan base, and that served as a genesis to what we're doing now and what we set out to do in the future. I just express gratitude, because for me, that just reaffirms thought processes and the motions that we're making right now. Because I truly believe when you walk the path with conviction, you encounter things and those that you need to encounter, so it's just further validating the vision that I have personally and the vision that we've set out to do collectively here with the Growth Spot. So just gratitude. We'll keep in contact. We'll build offline about the Let's Get Free Expo that will be occurring in mid-October, and more than willing to connect any dots that we can for you on our end as well, and collaboration. I feel like this is the season, whether people want to or not. There's a lot of aspects of our existence right now that's going to force people into that type of effort on many fronts, where people are going to have to, aggregate resources, be resourceful, and collaborate. I feel like we're truly at our best when we're doing that, especially when we're doing that out of want, right? Not necessarily like being forced to do so, right? And I feel like this is an instance of that, wanting to come together, wanting to build, being enthusiastic about what we're doing, what we can do, learning from each other also. So it's a win-win across the board. So I'm just appreciative.
Absolutely. Thank you, gentlemen.
Yep. If no further words, Brother Nikhil, you mind closing us out?
Absolutely, man. So look, this has been another dope episode, man. So excited to be able to build with the brother, man. But here at the Growth Spot, we're unified in action to build, protect, and expand a fruitful legacy of love, equity, growth, ancestry, cooperation, and yield. By inspiring and educating on the practices of agriculture, self-care, nutrition, environmental stewardship, and entrepreneurship, we aim to cultivate a vibrant community rooted in resilience and sustainability. Peace.
We're having babies, brother.
I know it, brother. The alarm's going off.
Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it.
Peace.
Bye-bye.